The scorching sun hung low over Mexico City in 1985, casting long shadows as a sleek black car tore through the streets. At the wheel was Heinrich Treadway, his hands gripping the steering wheel with practiced precision, his eyes darting between the road ahead and the rearview mirror. Pursuing him with relentless determination was a convoy of armed vehicles, their intentions deadly. But Treadway was no ordinary fugitive. He was an infinite, one of a rare group of individuals who retained memories of their past lives, reborn over and over again across centuries. And tonight he carried something that could determine the fate of all existence. The egg, a device of unimaginable power that could erase all life from the planet. His pursuer, Bathurst, was a fellow infinite, but unlike Treadway he was a nihilist. To him, immortality was a curse, an unending cycle of rebirth with no escape. And he had found a solution. The egg would end the cycle permanently. All he needed was to get his hands on it. Treadway swerved through the city streets, dodging bullets and weaving between terrified pedestrians, knowing there was no way out. Making a split-second decision, he veered toward an unfinished skyscraper, gunning the engine to full throttle. With a final surge of speed, he launched the car off the edge, sending it plummeting into the abyss below. He leaped from the vehicle just in time, barely grabbing onto a steel beam, while his pursuers watched helplessly as the egg disappeared with the wreckage. His mission was complete, but his story was far from over. Moments later, Bathurst's men surrounded him, and in an instant Heinrich Treadway was dead. Decades later, in modern-day New York, a man named Evan McCauley struggled with a life that never quite felt like his own. A skilled craftsman, he possessed an uncanny ability to forge weapons with ancient techniques he had never studied. He could speak languages he had never learned and recall places he had never visited. But to him these weren't gifts, they were symptoms. For years he had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, the visions and knowledge dismissed as nothing more than an overactive imagination. When he found himself in a violent altercation with local criminals, things took a turn for the worse. The authorities detained him, but instead of a routine arrest he was brought face to face with someone who knew far more about him than he did himself, Bathurst. The enigmatic man laid out an impossible truth. Evan wasn't insane. He was an infinite. And more than that, he was the reincarnation of Heinrich Treadway, the last person to have possession of the egg. Evan barely had time to process the revelation before the situation exploded into chaos. Armed operatives stormed the facility, their objective clear: rescue Evan at all costs. Leading them was a woman named Nora Brightman, a fellow infinite and member of the Believers, the sworn opposition to Bathurst and the Nihilists. Racing through the city in a desperate escape, Nora explained the reality of Evan's existence. He had lived countless lives and each time he had carried memories from one to the next. The reason his mind felt fractured was that his past was trying to break through. The Believers needed him to remember, because somewhere locked inside his subconscious was the key to the egg's location. But as they would soon find out, Evan's memories weren't just locked away. They were buried deep and time was running out. Evan sat in stunned silence inside the Believer's safe house, his mind racing. The revelation that he wasn't losing his grip on reality, but rather regaining memories of past lives, felt impossible to comprehend. Yet everything suddenly made sense. The unexplainable skills, the vivid dreams, the sense of déjà vu that had haunted him for as long as he could remember. He wasn't just Evan McCauley. He was Heinrich Treadway. He was countless others before that. And somewhere inside him was the answer to a question that could determine the fate of the world. Where was the egg? Nora Brightman and the other Believers explained their desperate situation. Bathurst and his faction, the Nihilists, had spent lifetimes searching for the egg, their goal singular and terrifying: use it to wipe out all life on Earth, erasing the cycle of reincarnation once and for all. It was the only way, in their eyes, to escape an eternity of endless rebirth. But the Believers had sworn to protect humanity, ensuring that the egg never fell into the wrong hands. The only problem? Heinrich Treadway had hidden it before his death, and Evan, as his reincarnation, was the only one who had access to that knowledge. But there was a catch. His memories weren't fully intact. His mind, struggling under the weight of multiple lifetimes, had locked them away, making it impossible to recall them at will. Enter Artisan, the Believer's eccentric and unpredictable scientist. With a mix of enthusiasm and exasperation, he introduced Evan to a machine of his own invention. One capable of accelerating memory retrieval. The process was dangerous, unpredictable, and, as Artisan gleefully pointed out, probably excruciating. There was no other choice. As Evan was strapped into the machine, pulses of electricity surged through his body, forcing his mind to relive flashes of his previous incarnations. He saw himself as a medieval knight wielding a sword in battle. Then as a Japanese samurai standing before a temple. A World War II pilot soaring through the sky. A gunslinger in the Old West. Each memory slammed into him like a tidal wave, overwhelming his senses until finally one vision took hold. Mexico City. A rooftop. A desperate leap from a speeding car. The flash of the egg in his hands. And then, nothing. Just as the image crystallized, alarms blared through the facility. Bathurst had found them. The nihilists stormed the compound, armed and ruthless. Bullets tore through walls as chaos erupted. Nora and the others fought back fiercely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Amidst the destruction, Evan struggled to stand, his head still spinning from the memory extraction. But there was no time to recover. Bathurst was coming for him. Evan knew what had to be done. With a newfound sense of purpose, he pushed through the pain, navigating through the burning corridors of the safe house. Artisan handed him a weapon, an antique firearm infused with advanced technology, designed specifically to end an infinite cycle permanently. If used correctly, it could erase someone from existence, ensuring they never reincarnated again. A useful tool against Bathurst. Outside, the battle raged on. Evan and Nora fought their way through the ambush, their instincts sharper than ever. But it wasn't just instinct, it was experience. Centuries of combat training, buried within Evan's mind, began to resurface. His movements became fluid, precise, lethal. He wasn't just remembering, he was becoming who he had always been. But just as they reached the getaway vehicle, Bathurst appeared, standing in their path. Smirking. Unshaken. "You don't even know what you are," he taunted, raising his weapon. "You never did." Evan didn't hesitate. With a speed that surprised even himself, he fired. The bullet barely missed Bathurst, but it was enough to force him back. In that split second, Nora grabbed Evan, and they dove into the car as it screeched away from the battlefield. Their mission was clear. Evan's fragmented memories had revealed the truth. The egg wasn't hidden in some secret vault. It wasn't buried in some long-forgotten location. It was inside him. Before Heinrich Treadway died, he had implanted the egg within his own body. Which meant that if Bathurst wanted it, he only needed one thing: Evan himself. There was no more running. No more hiding. The final battle was coming. The revelation hit Evan like a freight train. The egg wasn't hidden somewhere in the world. It had never been locked away in a vault or buried in some remote location. It was inside him. He was the egg's keeper, its living vessel. And now Bathurst knew it too. There was no time to process the weight of this discovery. The believers were already on the move, heading toward Bathurst's private stronghold in Scotland. It was there that the nihilists planned to extract the egg from Evan's body, by force if necessary. If they succeeded, the world as they knew it would end. Inside the aircraft transporting them, Artisan prepared Evan for what was coming. The extraction process would be excruciating, but there was still a chance. If they could get to the egg first, they could render it useless before Bathurst laid hands on it. But there was another option. A riskier one. If Evan could kill Bathurst permanently, using the specialized weapon Artisan had given him, he could end this war once and for all. As the plane neared its destination, Evan felt something shift inside him. For the first time, he wasn't questioning his reality. He wasn't doubting his memories or his abilities. He knew who he was. And that meant he knew how to fight. The moment the plane landed, all hell broke loose. Armed forces swarmed the facility as the believers launched a full-scale assault. Explosions rocked the night sky, gunfire echoed through the air, and the two warring factions clashed in a battle that had been centuries in the making. Evan and Nora pushed forward through the chaos, cutting through enemy lines as they raced toward the extraction chamber, where Bathurst was waiting. Inside the cold, metallic room, Bathurst stood beside an advanced surgical device, his expression eerily calm. "You know," he said, watching as Evan entered, "I've spent lifetimes trying to end this cycle. And now you've brought the egg right to me." Evan didn't respond. He simply raised his weapon. Bathurst sighed, almost amused. "You can't kill me, Evan. You never could." The fight erupted in an instant. Both men moved like forces of nature. Decades, centuries, millennia of battle instincts igniting with each strike. They weren't just two people fighting. They were warriors who had clashed across lifetimes, locked in an eternal war with no end. Blows were exchanged, bullets dodged, weapons shattered. Bathurst was fast, but Evan was faster. Every skill he had ever possessed in past lives, every technique, every strategy, came flooding back, fueling him with unparalleled precision. Then Bathurst made a mistake. He hesitated just for a fraction of a second. And that was all Evan needed. He fired. The special bullet Artisan had designed, crafted to erase an infinite's existence permanently, pierced through Bathurst's chest. The shock in his eyes was brief, replaced by a flicker of something else. Acceptance. For the first time in centuries, Bathurst felt something he had longed for: finality. His body collapsed, his soul slipping away into nothingness. There would be no reincarnation. No return. Bathurst was gone. Forever. But Evan wasn't safe yet. The chamber's alarms blared as the egg, now destabilized, began emitting a dangerous pulse. If it wasn't stopped, it could still wipe out everything. There was only one way. Grabbing the device, Evan sprinted toward the nearest exit. He barely made it to the airstrip before diving onto an aircraft in mid-takeoff. Holding onto the edge of the cargo bay, he fought against the wind, gripping the egg with all his strength. There was no time to think. Only time to act. With one final, determined breath, Evan hurled the egg into the depths of the ocean below. The moment it hit the water, the device deactivated, sinking into the abyss where no one could reach it again. His mission was complete. But at a cost. The force of the wind wrenched him from the aircraft, sending him plummeting into the sea. Darkness enveloped him, and for a brief moment, everything went silent. Years later, the world had moved on. The nihilists had crumbled, and the believers had begun rebuilding. Life continued, untouched by the devastation that once loomed over it. But Evan's story wasn't over. In Jakarta, Indonesia, a young man sat outside a temple, gazing at the sky with an expression of quiet recognition. He had no name yet, no past. But deep inside, something stirred. A memory, a purpose, a destiny waiting to be reclaimed. Evan McCauley had returned. And this time he was ready.